Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just jump right into it. Have you ever wondered how to build a brain that literally lasts a lifetime? We usually think losing our mental edge is just, well, a completely unavoidable part of getting older, right? Or maybe just bad genetics. But the latest neuroscience is telling us a completely different story. It turns out, simply moving your body is literally the single most powerful tool you have to build a resilient, vibrant mind. So let's dive into this biological detective story and see how exercise fundamentally changes the actual structure of your brain.
We actually start with a pretty emotional realization from neuroscientist Dr. Wendy Suzuki. Picture this. She was going through the super stressful process of trying to get tenure, and to cope, she started exercising regularly. Suddenly, she noticed her focus, her memory, and her mood were just blooming. But at the exact same time, she was watching her own father tragically lose his memory and his identity to Alzheimer's. She saw this heartbreaking contrast firsthand. Everything that was improving in her was completely and very suddenly diminishing in him. And that profound grief, it pushed her to pivot her entire career to figure out exactly how physical activity impacts our cognitive longevity.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, I need to train like an Olympic athlete to get those benefits, right? Actually, no. The data here is incredibly encouraging. To put this into perspective, just taking a regular brisk walk can lead to a massive 30% reduction in the probability of getting Alzheimer's for older adults. 30%! You absolutely don't need to be running marathons. You really just need to elevate your heart rate consistently. What this tells us is that it's never too late to start, and the longer you stay active, the more you shield your brain from decline.
Because right now, inside our heads, there's a stark dual narrative playing out, and it's based entirely on our daily habits. Look at the difference here. A sedentary brain is highly vulnerable. It faces structural decay, the hippocampus literally shrinks, and toxic amyloid beta plaques start building up. But then look at the flip side. An active brain is literally a growing brain. It goes through neurogenesis, which is the birth of brand new brain cells, and it actively clears out those harmful plaques. Every single day, your lifestyle is actively choosing one of these two biological paths.
So the absolutely crucial point here is neuroplasticity. For decades, the medical world thought the adult brain was totally fixed, like the brain you had in your 20s was just what you were stuck with forever. But the awe-inspiring reality is that your brain is incredibly malleable, almost like clay. Neuroplasticity means that your daily habits, especially your physical activity and learning new things, physically sculpt the actual structure of your brain. Those small, everyday choices are literally shaping the inside of your future self's head.
And when you work out, you're not just helping your brain in some vague, mysterious way. Exercise specifically targets two critical command centers. First up is the prefrontal cortex, right behind your forehead. This is the absolute boss of your attention, focus, and complex decision-making. Second is the hippocampus, buried deep in the temporal lobe. It's shaped a bit like a seahorse, and it's the bedrock for forming your long-term memories. These are the exact regions you rely on to keep your personality intact and your focus sharp over a lifetime.
If you want some real-world proof of this, we have to talk about the famous London taxi driver study. It's fascinating. To become a cabbie in London, you can't just rely on GPS. You have to perfectly memorize thousands of chaotic, intertwined streets. Well, researchers found that this intense spatial learning actually caused the posterior hippocampus, the back part of that seahorse structure, to physically grow in the successful drivers. The brain literally physically expands when challenged, exactly like a muscle.
So how do we best use that growing hippocampus? Well, science points to 4 fundamental principles to make memories permanently stick. First, you need repetition. Second is association, basically linking a brand new fact to something you already know, like using a mental memory palace. Third is novelty, the element of surprise. And finally, emotional resonance. When something makes you deeply happy or profoundly sad, a little almond-shaped structure called the amygdala gives your memory a biological jolt and locks it permanently in place.
Okay, let's dive into the literal chemical bubble bath that exercise creates to make all this growth happen. Whenever you get your heart rate up, your brain gets bathed in neurochemicals. One of the absolute most vital is BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. You can think of BDNF as high-grade, miracle fertilizer for your brain. It travels straight to the hippocampus and literally births brand new brain cells, kickstarting that awesome process of neurogenesis we talked about.
And joining BDNF is a truly fascinating molecule called irisin. Irisin is a myokine, which is essentially a messenger protein that gets produced just by your skeletal muscles contracting during a workout. It travels all the way through your bloodstream, sneaks across the fortress-like blood-brain barrier, and goes straight to work promoting synaptic plasticity. In fact, human studies show that having higher levels of irisin specifically protects the delicate subfields of your hippocampus from Alzheimer's pathology.
Now, what's really cool to see here is the biological bridge connecting all this, the brain-gut-muscle axis. We used to view the body as totally isolated parts, right? But moving your muscles secretes myokines like irisin, acting almost like an intercom system. They signal your gut to produce beneficial short-chain fatty acids. Then, those gut metabolites travel back up the vagus nerve and through the bloodstream to aggressively fight neuroinflammation. It's literally your muscles telling your gut and your brain to thrive together.
And this chemical cascade doesn't just build a bigger, better brain, it actively cleans it. A defining hallmark of Alzheimer's disease is the buildup of toxic amyloid beta plaques that gunk up and destroy neural networks. Well, accumulating evidence proves that aerobic exercise actively upregulates the clearance of these dangerous plaques. It effectively scrubs the brain of toxins and significantly slows down the path toward dementia, a real game changer.
Section 1. The Brain Prescription, Mapping Exercise Modalities to Cognitive Benefits. So, with the biological mystery solved, let's translate this science into a personalized prescription you can actually use today.
This breaks it down beautifully. Different workouts actually serve entirely different cognitive functions. If your main goal is to boost memory, you're going to want aerobic exercise to bathe the hippocampus in that BDNF fertilizer. But if you want to improve global cognition and your inhibitory control, you need to hit the weights with resistance training. And for sharpening things like executive function, working memory, and task switching, mind-body routines like Tai Chi or yoga are absolutely your best bet.
For the longest time, the medical community thought that once cognitive decline started, well, it was a one-way street. But groundbreaking trials out of the University of British Columbia completely flipped that. They proved that progressive strength training, just twice a week, can physically alter the trajectory of decline, even in seniors already showing mild cognitive impairment. They didn't just score better on memory tests. Functional MRIs showed their actual brain plasticity was enhancing and adapting. Incredible stuff.
Section 2. Holistic Brain Longevity. Beyond the physical workout. Because building a resilient brain definitely spans far beyond the hour you spend sweating in the gym. To really get the most out of this, you have to pair your physical routine with some foundational lifestyle pillars. First off, you absolutely need deep restorative sleep. Think of it as the ultimate overnight brainwash that clears out daily metabolic waste. You also need strong social connections to keep complex neural pathways firing. On top of that, engaging in mindfulness directly enriches the prefrontal cortex, while constantly learning novel things forces your memory centers to relentlessly adapt and grow.
Interestingly, protecting your brain also requires a pretty radical shift in how we handle stress. Even negative emotions, like anxiety, need to be reframed. Instead of seeing anxiety as just a hindrance or a threat, try to recognize it as an evolutionary biological signal. When you manage it correctly, using the exercise, breath work, and mindfulness we just talked about, you can actually harness that nervous energy productively to significantly heighten your focus and alertness.
Okay, let's lock in your actionable takeaways. First, start walking regularly to trigger that release of BDNF and irisin. Second, incorporate some resistance training to fiercely protect your executive function. Third, embrace mind-body practices to reduce stress and improve working memory. But the absolute most important takeaway? Focus on prevention now. Don't wait. Start this protocol today, decades before any symptoms of decline even have a chance to show up.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a vital question about the awe-inspiring power you hold over your own cognitive health. If every step you take and every weight you lift physically alters the very structure of your mind, what small choice will you make today to shape your future brain? Thanks so much for joining us, and keep moving.